Hi, my name is Scott K. Fish. I run the Life Beyond the Cymbals blog at scottkfish.com. This is my latest interview. It was conducted on October 27th, 2023, and it is with drummer, band leader, Sherrie Maricle. I was at home in St. Petersburg, Florida. Sherrie was at her home and music studio in Westchester, Pennsylvania. I don't remember when I first became aware of Sherrie Maricle, probably through a LinkedIn group we both belong to. It's called the Jazz Network Worldwide, and not just Jazz Network. Kind of a mouthful, but it's a good group, and there are a lot of good people in there. So the more I found out about Sherrie Maricle and her work with the DIVA Jazz Orchestra, the Five Play Quintet, and the 3D Jazz Trio, I just became intrigued, and I was hoping that she would say yes to my request to interview her, which she did. Our conversation here centers mostly on Maricle's current activities, which are substantial. She is, as I just said, both a leader and a drummer, so she handles the business end of things as well as the music end of things for the big band, the DIVA Jazz Orchestra, the Five Play Quintet, and her 3D Jazz Trio. She just celebrated the DIVA Jazz Orchestra's 30th anniversary. The big band recorded a wonderful CD at Dizzy's Club in New York City. On top of that, Sherrie works coast to coast as a clinician for Sabian Cymbals, Yamaha Drums, Vic Firth Drumsticks, and Aquarian Drumheads. She is guest conductor, soloist, and adjudicator for collegiate and high school jazz festivals. She teaches private lessons with students from her home, and she's a Adjunct Associate Professor, School of Music Drumset Co-Coordinator at University of the Arts in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Biggest surprise for me was that after I had heard Sherrie play and listened to her on some of the CDs they've recorded, was that I had never heard of her before. She's just a wonderful musician, and the players in her bands are all great players. I mean, there are no seat warmers, nobody just holding down a chair. So from a strictly drumming perspective, Sherrie plays very well, as I said, with all the different groups, and she's exciting. She's an exciting player to hear, and she's fun. She's plays with a lot of surprises. So it's just good stuff to listen to. I hope you enjoy listening to Sherrie Maricle as much as I enjoyed interviewing her, and be sure to check out Sherrie Maricle's extensive CD offerings. You can find everything Sherrie Maricle at her website, which is sherriemaricle.com. SherrieMaricle.com.
Hello.
Hey, Sherrie, Scott Fish, how are you?
Hi, Scott. Good, thank you.
Good.
Good to hear your voice.
Good to hear yours. Is it okay to call you Sherrie? Does that work?
Of course.
Thank you for doing this. Anytime I prepare for an interview, I like to get as much information, absorb as much information as I can. Records, albums, interviews, articles, all that kind of stuff. And as I was going through the DIVA Jazz Orchestra website and going down each player, it became this monster of information where so-and-so played with 50,000 different orchestras in 90 countries. And I said, I'm never going to absorb all this. So I've absorbed as much as I can up to the moment. Great music, and I love listening to it, and I look forward to listening to more. But because it's so vast, you should be triplets. I've taken a few parts of what you do, the bigger picture, and I thought we'd focus on them. But please, if if I miss anything or if there's anything that you really want to touch on, sing out, okay?
Okay.
My experience with interviews is that most professional drummers have similar parts of their formative years, and so maybe the best approach to that question would be to ask you if there are any parts of your beginning years that really stand out to you now, things that were super important, people you may have met who, as it turned out, that meeting was really significant for the rest of your career.
Well, the reason I play the drums or dedicated my life to big band and jazz drumming is because I saw Buddy Rich play when I was 11 years old in Binghamton, New York at the Forum, it was called, and his band then was called the Killer Force Orchestra.
Yeah.
And, I just saw, I wasn't really familiar with jazz because I didn't grow up in a jazz-oriented household, but rather a country western and Irish folk music house. And I saw that concert, and every hair on my body stood on end, and I had goosebumps and adrenaline like I was flying off the biggest roller coaster. And it was because of I never heard music and power and excitement, and it just struck me as right to my soul. And that's what I raced home and told my mother I was going to be a drummer. And that she was like very horrified, not horrified, but she didn't know what I was talking about.
How did you end up there to begin with at the concert?
A teacher was taking some kids from the band program because I played other instruments. I originally wanted to play trumpet, but I was told girls didn't play the trumpet. Which is crazy, right? I was playing metal clarinet, and I played cello in the orchestra when I was in fourth grade forward for a few years. And this teacher just decided to take some of us in the class to this concert. He thought it would be cool, and I was in the back row, and it changed my life that very moment.
So Buddy's playing in that band inspired you. They didn't make you think, I can never do that. I maybe I better stick to the metal clarinet.
No, it had the exact impact that you're saying. No, I knew that was the thing that I wanted to do more than anything. And it spoke to me very, very clear, and I never had to think about what I wanted to do with my life again. And since I was 11 years old. Since
you were 11. Good for you. Good for you. Did you ever get a chance to meet Buddy?
I did. I went on his bus a couple of times and just to say hi and get his autograph when I was a kid. And his band played in my hometown of Endicott, New York, and then Binghamton area many times. And then, lo and behold, flash forward to the DIVA Jazz Orchestra was founded by Buddy Rich's manager, Stanley Kay.
So after Buddy, how did your taste in music evolve? Buddy and jazz. What did you do to expand to learn how to do what Buddy was doing? And did you listen to records? What did you do?
That was the primary way that I learned. Yeah, and I would ask my teachers, and the school band directors for everything. I was actually, when I went into high school, I was a little nervous about auditioning for the jazz ensemble, but the music teacher said to me, "What are you, stupid? Go ahead. Who cares?" I was nervous because no girls had ever played the drums before, or something was in my head that, but he encouraged me, and then I just sought, like, every song we played or chart we played in the big band in school, I would just, if there was a recording, I would get it, and I would memorize it, and I would try to play what the drummer on the recording was playing. And I did took private lessons, to learn foundational technique, of course, and, I just progressed through college with the help. A lot of my teachers helped me very much, and, when I was in college at the State University, Binghamton University it's called.
Yeah.
The chairman of the music department, a man named Al Hom, really was a significant impact on my career because he gave me multiple opportunities to play with the legendary Slam Stewart, who lived in Binghamton.
Yeah. Great place player.
Al was the contractor for like all the Forum where I saw Buddy, the Binghamton Arena, like every big Ice Capade show, every traveling Broadway show with Al's own professional bands. He had 2 of them, and I played with all of them. And you could not pay to have such a great musical upbringing and experience as a young person, being in that environment and having all those opportunities. It really transformed me into a really great sight reader and gave me lots of opportunity to play a wide variety of music. And it was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, you anticipated one of my next questions, which was you have an extensive education, formal education in music and jazz performance, and I wondered if the School of Hard Knocks fit in with that as well, and I think you just answered the question, yes. So that
yes. Funny, it was funny with my higher ed degrees. When I graduated from undergrad school, I took out a $5,000 loan, and I was just intending to move to New York. That was my goal, is just go immerse myself and deep into like every jazz nook and cranny in the city that I could get into, and that's all I wanted to do, and just play. But at the college, there was a concert, and in the concert was Bob Brookmeyer and Joe Lovano, and I think Dick Oates might have been there, and Michael Moore was the bass player, Roger Kellaway. The drummer was Adam Nussbaum.
Yeah.
The bass player, Michael Moore, I was talking to, and Michael said to me, well, I was saying, I'm going to move to New York, and he said, well, I teach at this school called New York University. He said, we have a pretty good master's program. Would you be interested in attending school? And I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll go check it out. So I didn't even know what NYU was, so I went there and auditioned, and long story short, I ended up with a scholarship to finish my master's degree, and also then was offered a doctoral fellowship for my PhD. And I took it because I thought to myself, oh good, then I don't have to worry about rent. That was my motivation for having a PhD. When I tell people that, they're like, what? They get really all like wigged out. And I took it seriously, and it was a lot of work, but the reason is literally so then I didn't have to worry about my rent for 3 years.
You must have been an excellent reader by that time. And did you said being on the gig and playing those gigs with Slam Stewart, was that it? Was he in the band? And
no, I usually played, his concerts were completely jazz oriented, and we rarely had music for his. Yeah, we did some of his original songs. We might have music, but no, we really didn't read too much on that. But just with Al Ham's big band, which was called Music Unlimited, his dance band called Swing Street had a massive, dance library, which I love that music too, of Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey, and all the classics.
Yeah.
And just like reading show after show. Ringling Brothers Circus, and then here comes, like I mentioned, Ice Capades and all those shows. That was incredible training. You just can't get that anywhere. How
well did you read when you first started playing those charts?
I was a good reader from the minute that I started doing it, because I made a connection very quickly, especially with jazz, between looking at the written page, how the music would sound as an artistic expression. So I caught on pretty quickly about, and using the, I call them the drumming Bibles of Stick Control and the Ted Reed Syncopation book, and certain books that are, good for foundational technique and reading. So those, I felt like really prepared. And then, even in high school, I was a good sight reader, and then just, got better as time ticked on.
Did, your cello playing and the clarinet playing help reading music with those two instruments?
Not so much. Cello was sort of like in a, not Montessori way, because it was way back in the 70s, but it was more like almost learning by rote, sort of. Like instead of the names of the note, as I remember about the classes. But yeah, every instrument I played helped with, all of it. Everything you do in music helps everything else in music.
Yeah.
Nothing makes you a worse musician in music, unless you allow it to.
Did you have any moments when you just blew it on stage and you felt like, I'm just going to go home and throw my sticks in the garbage, that's it, my career's washed up?
Oh yeah, all musicians have had those I can't play my instrument at all moments, or make some kind of a mistake that's just, oh my God, why do I even bother with this? But then then the driving force why you're a musician / performer to begin with is the thing that continues to motivate you and keep your focus on those the 99.9% of all the stellar moments that add up and are just like rocket fuel for your passion, passion.
Yeah, that's true. After Buddy, certainly there were other drummers that you began listening to, other types of music maybe. How did you evolve that way? Who came after Buddy?
Well, when I went to New York, my first teacher in 1985 was Mel Lewis, so he was a big influence on me. Very different kind of big band drummer than Buddy, but I love Mel's playing and loved him. And my other teacher in New York was Adam Nussbaum, great influence on me. And I also studied with Jeff Hamilton, a couple of jazz camp out in Washington State when I was a kid, and he was a major influence on me. I love his playing. And, I played in a couple of wedding bands when I was a kid too, like cover bands, and loved all the pop music of the 70s, loved disco, still do, love the Bee Gees, love the Carpenters.
Yes.
The first channel on my Sirius radio is, music of the 70s, and it's real jazz. Those are the two things, number 1 and 2 in my car.
That's funny. Mel was my very first interview for Modern Drummer magazine back in, I think it was 1976 when I interviewed her at his home. And, I loved his playing as well. So I was 20-something, 26 years old maybe, something like that in fact, it's funny because I was just rereading the transcript of the tape that I made with Mel. When I first heard you didn't sound like Mel Lewis, but your feel was within that type of big band playing. They're kind of a loose. Mel would have called it a fat sound, right? And
that's a great compliment. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's something. I think about it now that I just turned 60, and I think Mel was 60 when he died.
Was he really? Was he that young?
Yeah, young is right. Unbelievable. But those guys were. Just talking to you about it makes me want to go immerse myself in a whole bunch of Mel and just start going to play with some of his recordings and try to feel like he did. I know about it. And I love Philly Joe Jones. He's one of my favorite players. I just love he's swinging so hard, and I love Art Blakey. I'm at my heart and soul. I am a very rooted right in the tradition of jazz and swing. That's the kind of music I love most. I'm not moved or particularly excited about a lot of the new stuff that's out there because none of it's swinging, but it's still, called jazz. It's all odd metered stuff.
I agree with you. I sometimes wonder if maybe it's me, but I listen to all the drummers you mentioned. You could put on a record with Philly Joe, Art Blakey, Mel, and I could tell you who's playing without reading the labels just by the way these guys sounded. And I'm not, right? And I'm not hearing that individual sound from players. Everybody kind of has the same sound, the same drum set, the same setup. I don't quite enjoy it as much as those great guys out of the 40s and 50s and 60s, I guess. Yeah, and they're also so different, and like all the great horn players and great vocalists. But you could hear even like Elvin, and then to me, then sort of a next shift of really interesting drummers is when Steve Gadd was developing his amazing sound and fusion style, and that really transformed drumming for a lot of people. And there's a whole school of people that came off of that. A lot of them, like the great Motown drummers too, or Bernard Purdy and some of those guys, just amazing feels. But today though, some of my students are really into heavy metal, and some of that stuff. It's more like a sport. I find it so unmusical. It's just a technical, and it is treating the drums like a sport. It's like drums as the ultimate fight club or something. Yeah, or how fast can I jog on my bass drum pedals to play as fast as possible? I don't find that musical or interesting. It's impressive, but it's not my focus or means of artistic expression. I don't find it to be artistic. Now we both sound old. Now we both, right. Here we are at the old folks' home. The thing that drags me back from questioning myself, am I getting old? Yeah, you are getting old, but I can still listen to music from all eras. It's either good or it's bad. And a lot of the music I hear, I hear some good music, still new music, but there's a lot of it that it's almost like if you go on YouTube and there's a drummer on YouTube, before he hits a note, I know what this guy's going to sound like. I could probably tell you what he's going to play. It's all the But maybe that raises a good question. Is individuality in sound something you as a teacher can pass along to a drummer, or is that something that is innate? You either have it or you don't.
I actually talk to my students, not so much some of the younger ones, but even just, about your tuning, your choice of heads and cymbals, and your choice of everything creates your sound. And from early on, I tell them to think about it, like, what's your sound and what's the relationship between the, intervals between your toms, and like that shapes how you play your fills and how melodically you're going to play. If you can hear melodies in your instrument, and then once you find what that is, that's your sound. Like I stole part of my arsenal of me is I have the very first Chinese cymbal off the Zildjian assembly line that was meant to replicate Mel's famous Chinese cymbal.
Oh, no kidding. It sounds great, that cymbal you used.
I was at the Zildjian factory when I used to have an endorsement with them, but since I've switched to Sabian. But that cymbal, they didn't like it. It was the very first one. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. Give this to me. So I have the first kind of prototype of that cymbal, and that's part of my, I love like riding on a huge swish knocker with rivets.
Yep.
Like Mel does that. Jeff Hamilton has that sound, and I love it. It's so like gritty and greasy and trashy, and especially when you're like shuffling on a blues or something. It's just, my trio actually call it an overdrive cymbal, because when I ride on it, like at the climax of something, it just for them, it shifts everything into like a whole new level of energy. They love it.
Dizzy used to say that the drummers shouldn't go ding, ding, da, ding, ding, da, ding on those Chinese cymbals, that they should use single notes, like Jimmy Cobb. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, but that's a great question, and I don't know if a lot of drummers probably don't really think about what is my sound and how do my four limbs generate the sound. It's a really good question. You ask great questions because you're you're one of us. We're in the same family.
When I was watching the videos of Five Play and Trio, and I think there were two basic sets that you use, at least in the videos, a blonde Yamaha or yellow Yamaha, and then one that maybe it's a Yamaha set. It was sort of a dark oak finish set. You know the one you must know the one I'm talking about.
I mean, I'm an endorser of Yamaha, so they are Yamaha. So I have a Maple Custom, the one that you saw. That's sort of my primary kit that I've played, for 30 years. I love that Yamaha Maple Custom with gold lugs and Aquarian Drumheads, new vintage heads, modern vintage heads that are like very much like simulated calf.
Mm-hmm.
And then my array of cymbals. But I have an oak custom and a birch custom Yamaha kit, and I, with my big band, always use a 20-inch drum, bass drum, and with a small group, 18.
Okay.
They're open and they ring and they're very resonant, and that's the way I like it. And a couple of times I played on Mel Lewis's drum set at the Vanguard. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. It's so hard to play because of the calf heads. Oh my God.
What? So talk about that. How was it to play that drum set?
I found it impossible. It was so hard to play because it was like playing on wet dish towels to me.
So no really zero stick response on the set?
Yeah, very little response. The sound was amazing. I went through a period of having calf heads for a while on my snare drum, and they were just too temperamental. And at $80 a pop back then, they kept breaking, and I was like, I can't do this. And then, what else is one of the things that I don't mind listening to it, but I don't like, I always retune the drums to be at a lower frequencies. I can't stand they call it the bebop tuning, where they're like high bongo drums on your toms. I like my drums to be tubs, even in the small group. I like them tuned in a significant a range of a kind of lower on the spectrum, I guess.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Listening, I clearly don't mind at all, but when I'm playing it, I don't hear melody and music in that range somehow on the drums.
And it's thin too. When you hit a tightly tuned drum, it's very staccato, and the sound, it's there, and an instant later it disappears. And did you know John Von Ohlen?
I didn't know him, but certainly a big fan of his.
Yeah, great. He was another Mel Lewis guy, and tuned his drums very, very, very low too, and great guy. Let's talk about, if you don't mind, you're listed as a music director, co-leader or leader, and drummer of the trio, the jazz orchestra, and the quintet. How is your leadership role with the trio compared with the quintet, compared with the jazz orchestra?
Well, the trio, we're all more like co-leaders, and artistically we all have equal input in the trio. All is very equally divided, but some of the more administrative and music business stuff I handle for all the groups. That's the only difference with the trio. In the quintet and big band, I'm not the music director and the music director, but also the artistic director, so I choose all the repertoire and the arrangements, and they're all commissioned, all of them, in Five Play and DIVA. So, or I do some of them myself. And then just, with more people, you have to manage more. So it's everything amplified. If one person's unhappy about something, got to figure out ways to deal with that. And if 15 people are unhappy, the same situation.
Man. Well, I know that DIVA Jazz Orchestra was built around you, right? I think that's on the website that Stanley K heard you play. He liked the way you played, and he thought, you know what, let's build a jazz orchestra around this drummer.
That's all true, and he really wanted to give, he said, when he called me up with the proposal about DIVA, he said, he goes, how come there's no women playing in any of the big bands in town? And there was big bands all over the place. Of course, the Mel Lewis Jazz Orchestra then, the Vanguard, and Toshiko's band was playing at Lush Life. And Joe Rakasano was another guy who had a big band in residency. And all the road bands were still rolling too, Maynard and this and that. And Stanley said, why aren't there any women in these bands? And I said, that was an excellent question. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's not because, women just weren't getting called. Regardless of of course there were women that could play, and that's what Stanley wanted to know. And there are women that play like you. And I said, yes. We had an audition, and 40 women came to the first audition. And Stanley said, if the music sounds great, we'll keep going. If I don't like it, we're not going to do it. I don't care what you look like. You can be fat. You can have a mustache. So all you have to do is be able to play great. Music doesn't have a gender. If you play, you can play, and that's it.
Yes. Amen.
And let's do this. So yeah. So then the first band had me and Ingrid Jensen was in that band, and our still great lead trumpet player, Lisa Whitaker. And a lot of people have been in the group, over 25 years.
I was reading that, and there's just great players in that, in all the bands, the trio, the quintet, and the jazz orchestra. And I asked myself, how come I've never heard of these people before? I mean, they're that good. They're that good that certainly, because I listen to a lot of music, and I past music, and I'm just constantly searching around looking for something new to listen to. And when I started going through the biographies of each of the players in the DIVA Jazz Orchestra, and it'd say so and so played with this, and then this, and then they'd have their own website, and I'd go there and I'd listen to their music, and it was fun to do, but it became overwhelming because all of a sudden I'm stumbling upon all of these great players, and it's like, holy smoke! I don't think there's a what would you call it? A clinker in the whole band. Nobody's just warming a chair in that orchestra.
Right, and that's and that was the point. That was the point of beginning the project. And 31 years ago when we started, there wasn't as many women playing at that, limitless artistic level. I mean, from the skill of being a great sight reader and knowing how to play in a big band, and of course to soloing and improvising. But now there are many more women. I mean, many more women on the scene. Women are studying it more and more in college, and are just being recognized. Just like, it's still jazz is still male dominated, but women are, especially since the Me Too movement, really using their voices more and not taking any crap. And
yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I sort of went through my developmental period just with blinders on, and I didn't, people, of course, people are going to say ridiculous things and are always trying to hit on you left and right, and just the typical nonsense you would imagine. But I just, like a horse with blinders, I just plowed through because I didn't care. All I cared about was jazz and the drums. So now that women say things like, very openly, and I love that, where a 20-year-old can look at, maybe a teacher or a fellow bandmate who's harassing her or not treating her properly, and just can say, F you, and stop it right now.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's really great. So I think that's helping even the field out. But yeah, I mean, I have a list of, I keep an ongoing list of all the people. And there have been some men too in DIVA over the years, because I would never put someone in the chair that couldn't play the music. Gender's not, I'm not going to have a woman just because of her gender. You have to be a badass and be able to do the job.
Yeah, good for you. I interviewed Terrell Carrington when she was 17. She came she came into the Modern Drummer office, and we did a feature interview with. That's when she came out with her first album that was just reissued. She was there being interviewed because she was playing great, even at 17 years old at the time. And I brought that up because I remember thinking during those interviews, I just want to interview this person. I don't want to interview her as a female drummer, or you're a drummer. Can we just talk like you and I are talking right now? 30 or so years ago, I was less sure about how to do that, I guess.
Did you happen to see the? I have like a little 5-minute history of DIVA I put together. It's on YouTube. Or it's on the internet. It's on social media too. It's just a 30-year history of the band in 5 minutes.
No, I'll watch it though. I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, I think it just says DIVA is 30, or a history of DIVA in under 5 minutes or something. It's on the DIVA YouTube channel, and it's on my YouTube channel as well.
Okay.
Yeah, you might enjoy it. It's a pretty good synopsis.
I'm sure I will. And you guys have to slow down releasing albums till I catch up with the ones that are out there. So I wanted to ask you about, while we're talking about the music business a little bit, first from your perspective, how did you feel about being the business? It sounds like you are the business leader as well as the musical leader of these different orchestras. Was that something you were interested in? Did you just become that by default?
When Stanley was alive, Stanley did a lot of it, and I helped him, and he was a very strong leader in that way, and one of the greatest human beings in the business. His word was his bond. He never was full of shit ever. He was just such a great guy, and very loved, and he taught me a lot about that. And then when he passed away, I didn't have to think about it very long. There was no way I was not going to keep the band going, and I just had to assume those other responsibilities. And I've had one of my bandmates, Lee Pilzer, helps a lot with our organizing our library, which has hundreds of charts in it over the last 30 years. And then I have another friend in the band also that helps with some minor business things, and there's so many, from putting out ads to paying the taxes to whatever, every single thing in business you can imagine. So anyway, I don't like it at all, actually. Probably, I don't know, like once or twice a year, I definitely have some kind of a breakdown and say, I hate this so much, like aspects of the music business, and from booking flights and hotels to... You
do all that stuff?
We do it with me and the friend I mentioned. And I sometimes, we've been on tour with the Manhattan Transfer since last October, on and off, and they take care of all of that. So to me, it's like a dream come true to have somebody else do all the business stuff, to run the payroll, to do, whatever. I mean, I find it to be very, very tedious, and then all the management that has to happen once you get to the gig, and handling all those aspects of, the sound check, and like my chair is crooked and whatever is going. I sit behind the drum set, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm the drummer too.
What do you use? What are you using, if anything, for monitors on stage?
Yeah, I just usually have a monitor over on my hi-hat side.
Okay.
So sometimes it's on sometimes it's by my floor tom, just one floor monitor. That's all. I'm usually fine with that.
Okay. And
it's usually just a little bit of piano, sometimes bass if the bass amp isn't close enough to me, and then soloist, because clearly you don't need it for the big band.
No. So are your students interested in the music business? Is that something that you encourage them to learn, or does that not come up?
No, it comes up. I keep telling them, what, Stanley actually told me, and a couple other mentors of mine, one particularly, Tom Boris, was, good at saying, you are a business. like the band is a business, and you as an individual artist, you're a business, and you have to treat yourself like a business. I use this analogy to my students when they don't want to practice. I said, you're your own business, and if you don't take care of your business, you're going to shut your doors. You're going to go out of business. So, I don't know. Yeah, we discuss it, but not the students now these days. There's tons of classes. There's so much great stuff online. I have a friend, Erica von Kleist, that plays in the band sometimes, and she's got a whole spiel and courses about navigating your way through the music business.
Oh, nice.
From copyright stuff and just everything to do with it, every bit of it. And it is, I really know if I had a manager or a strong booking agent, then that could do everything. I would not do any of it. I can't stand it. I would just play the drums.
All right.
And when I am a side person or like on this Manhattan transfer stuff where I don't have to do any of that, it is really like the nirvana beyond belief. All I have to do is show up and think about the music and my own artistry and playing the drums, and it's just heaven. It's absolute heaven. Now,
you're not music leader. You're not of your jazz orchestra when you're with the Manhattan Transfer, are you, or are you?
Well, I'm the leader of DIVA, but they have their music director, Yuran Gershovsky, and he conducts the whole show. Okay. So we play like a little exit music and stuff. It's just the band, but mostly we're playing, we're playing the transfer show. So no, I mean, I'm not conducting or giving musical instruction at this point. But at the beginning, we talked about it a little bit, and like who the soloists are, and I told Yuran what I thought, and he listened to me, and, so that like that, but no, he's got the helm with the transfer. And we're playing their last show is going to be December 15th at Disney Hall in LA. We're going to play with them.
Yeah, I could think back to living in Iowa in like 72, 73, and Manhattan Transfer was out and about then.
Yeah, they're celebrating 50 years, and it's amazing. They're all great people. They're all so nice, and their show is like 2.5 hours. They sing every single song.
Wow.
There's no there's a couple of instrumental solos here and there, but they are singing every song, and they're amazing. And their choreography is great, and they're such good humans. It's been a really joy to be with them for this last, year and a half of their last hurrah before they quit.
Boy, I want to, if we have a couple of minutes to ask you about your clinics when you do them, and I know you do clinics for different Aquarian and Vic Firth and so forth. But before I do that, while we're still in the music business, I wanted to ask about the impact digital music has had on your business. Good, bad?
Do you mean, but not the digital format like a CD? Do you mean like
yeah, right, music? Right. So, well, two things really. One is the format. So, are people buying MP3s more than they're buying, or streaming more than they're buying CDs and jewel cases? That's one. And then have you had to adjust to royalties or any kind of payments from the sale of music digitally versus an album, a vinyl album, or a CD?
Yeah, it's definitely. I find, even though people will tell you that CDs are definitely, I think all the young people just want to stream everything. They rarely have a CD player. Some of them are getting back into vinyl. DIVA's never put out a vinyl recording. I would think about it, but it's quite costly at this point. CDs are still inexpensive. And so we find, most of we sell on shows or, sell through Bandcamp or, stuff that is in our own website, which is of course a little bit more easier to get royalties from yourself than trying to get it from the streaming services.
Yeah.
I heard, it's so low. Even if you sell thousands and thousands of streams, it's still such low money because we're not selling millions like the pop people. So it's never a lot of money. And, I guess I have some download cards sometimes that I have at gigs too, if people want those, because they're in hand and they can take them. And then, streaming's strange. I still don't understand how some of it's legal. What happens with it?
Yeah, I agree. I still don't understand. To me, it's interesting because it really changed up. I mean, it took musicians who had been on the road, and they had built up basically a nice annuity for themselves that when it was time for them to get off the road and retire, they could plan on having that in retirement, and it just pretty much blew it up. And
I know. Like I played in an orchestra in New York called the New York Pops for over 30 years. Which had a regular season at Carnegie Hall and all. And some of Skitch Henderson was the conductor.
Nice.
He was, used to be the conductor of the Tonight Show, original Tonight Show. With Steve Allen. Anyhow, some people in that orchestra were like, they were still getting, royalty checks from stuff they did in the 50s and 60s. Like still getting big checks from like Barbra Streisand recording and this and that. And I don't know how much that happens these days because there's so much digital recording anyway, or synthesized music and computer generated and now AI generated.
So, well, which is a whole other thing. I mean, if you were an 11-year-old today, would you be attracted to the drum set from hearing most of the popular stuff that's on the radio? I don't know that I would.
I don't know, and because where I grew up, like I said, I don't know if I mentioned this, but when I met Buddy, I saw Buddy Rich probably 6 times when I was a kid growing up in my hometown. Every place had jazz. Like this was it was called the Endicott Motor Lodge. It was like a weird little hotel, but they had jazz. I saw Maynard Ferguson there, Woody Herman.
The big bands played?
Macy. Yeah.
Wow.
And you could be like an inch away from them. It was like crowded, had a dumpy little place, but the owner loved jazz. And then, of course, they would like Sinatra and Basie at the Binghamton Arena, 6,000 seat arena. But I saw so much of that music that just deepened my love from the initial spark I got from Buddy. And I don't even know where I would say my college students, many of them probably have never heard or seen a big band live at this point in their lives. I mean, so... And like where I teach is not necessarily a jazz school; it's a music school, but it's all styles of music. And I don't know. That's a really good question. Like my nephew, he's 15. He's just insane about Buddy Rich. He all of a sudden just went berserk to learn the drums, and he's texts me every day like with all these different Buddy Rich things and stories and questions and. So I'm happy I have someone to talk to. No one in my family has ever expressed an interest in jazz before, so this is kind of cool.
Yeah,
The point is that I think he heard it and it sparked him like it did me, so he finds ways to experience it.
I don't think anybody had the command of the drum set that Buddy did. I mean, I'm not talking about style or whether people or whether there are other great drummers, but just the command of the instrument was, unbelievable.
Yeah, it was really, really an absolute extension of his creativity, of course, his charisma and technical facility and all that, but it was really such an expression of like genuine, like I call it music from the neck down. When you play with your heart, and some people play music from the neck up, they play with their head.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but Buddy really just, you could feel his soul in what he was playing.
Yeah. Before I let you go, Ronald McDonald House, you seem to have an affinity for that organization. Thought that might be something you wanted to touch on.
Sure, thank you. Yeah. Well, when I was in the New York Pops, they had a bunch of community and education outreach, and I was involved in because I've always liked teaching. And we had a mutual board member. Her name was Nancy Nichols, and she said to me, "Sherrie, why don't you go over to the Ronald McDonald House and see if there's some music that we could offer them?" So I was like, okay. So I went over there, and then we started an in-house program. The New York Ronald McDonald House is for exclusively pediatric oncology patients and their family.
Man.
Where the houses worldwide, deal with all kinds of critically ill children. But it is one of the best organizations, and it was all started by this lovely Scottish woman named Dr. Audrey Evans, and it was all her concept, and this woman changed the world with her kindness. But anyway, so we had an in-house program. There's a really nice music room there. We had a bunch of drum sets. The kids, we play like cover band. Depending on where the people come from all over the world, we had a samba guitar player once whose daughter was there, and he was from Brazil, so we played samba. There's a club date band from LA. we played like we were in a wedding band for a minute sometimes down there, and the kids jam and play. And then we have like a vocal and a songwriting thing that we do too. And that expanded then into the hospital partners in New York. So once a week we do a themed concert at various hospitals around the 5 boroughs of New York. So it's awesome. It's like you're bringing love and joy to places that nobody wants to be.
Yeah.
At all, ever. No one wants to be in a Ronald McDonald House, and nobody wants to be in the hospital. So just through music, it's amazing how much it can really touch people and transform people very quickly. To have at least like an hour of happiness, even though they're in a place they don't want to be.
Yep. So, and you're still active doing that?
Yeah. I don't because I don't live in New York anymore, so I don't perform in a lot of them, but I do sometimes. But I contract and run the program and do the educational materials. So I've really liked. It's about 15 years now of doing that.
Wow, good for you. Nice. It's a nice thing.
It's very grounding.
Yeah. I know, but for the grace of God, right? It's just
absolutely.
Yeah.
You think anytime I ever thought like I was having some problem, when I walked into the Ronald McDonald House, I was immediately like, I have no problems.
Right.
When you see parents struggling with a kid with cancer, there's nothing. So yeah. Thanks for mentioning that. I do love that organization. The only thing that I hope do you have the 30th anniversary recording?
I do. I actually bought it, downloaded it, and listened to it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And next one I'm going to get is the 5 Play live on the Firehouse stage.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
The only thing that made me hesitate was I saw that Nat Hentoff gave you 4 or 5 stars for the first 5 Play.
Oh yeah, that was something. That was really wild. He voted us like one of his CDs of the year pick.
Yeah.
I was really blown away by that.
Yeah, he was all those guys. That's another era of music writers, Hentoff and Dan Morgenstern and all those. Man,
oh yeah,
what an education.
Something. Yeah, and then the trio is the youngest of our groups, and we started. I was musical director for Maurice Hines' show called Tapping Through Life.
Nice.
That we were on the road for about 4.5 years. On and off, we would do like 2 months in LA, have a month off, and then go to Atlanta for 6 weeks, then a month. So Maurice Stanley Kay managed Maurice Hines, and in fact, he managed Hines and Dad, Gregory Hines, Maurice Hines, and their father had an act in the 70s, and Stanley always managed Maurice, so that's how I know Maurice. Anyhow, we were in Cleveland and we needed a pianist, and everybody told me, you got to call this Jackie Warren woman. And so, long story short, we all got together, and she and Amy Shook, the bass player, and I just had one of those. And I'm sure you've had this too. You're just like, it's love at first note. Yeah. Like the minute we played one measure together, we're like, I love you. Yeah. It was just like a perfect fit of feel and all that. So we kept playing together even after the show, the show closed, and here we are. So at Trio 2 is very rooted in tradition and kind of in the style of Gray Brown's Trio, like really, we humbly, swinging as hard as possible, because our tagline on our website is swinging on purpose with purpose.
Yeah, I know. I love that. Well, it sounds to me like now you should get Amy to do Slam Stewart medley.
Oh, yeah, that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
I love Slam. Slam, when you mentioned Gene Krupa, that's when I started playing with Slam. I was so terrified at first when I was in college, because I was like, oh my God, he played with Gene Krupa. I was freaking out.
I just love those guys. The whole history of drumming was what kind of motivated me to get into the writing of it. Who were these guys? And, thank you so much for doing this.
All right. Well, I feel honored to be on your list of people you choose to talk to. So thank you very much.
Well, you played great, and I'm so happy that I had an opportunity to hear your music. And it's just one of those things that's like, where have you been all my life? Moments. So.
Well, cool. I'm glad you found me.
Yeah, me too.